All right, everyone. A recent poll came out showing that people believe that Joe Biden is the worst president in modern presidential history. What modern relates to is in the eye of the beholder. Of course, if you're Jimmy Carter's age, modern would be Woodrow Wilson. But first I wanted to show this off. It's actually blooming for the first time in several years. I'm sorry, I just love my bromeliad. I've had it living since I was in middle school, so pardon me if I'm a little bit of obsessed over that particular plant. Link in the description. Not archived, of course. This is one of my own statuses, actually. I found this fascinating because keep in mind who Joe Biden is competing with. Now, number one, you've got Donald Trump. He did a good job. I would rank him a 6 out of 10. I have high hopes for his second term, so that's not really competition for the lowest spot. Then you've got Obama, a person who reigned over the Great Recession and caused the Occupy movement by bailing out a bunch of corporations and banks, and used the government to spy on political adversaries at the AP, which was really, really hush-hush. They didn't want to talk about that too much. I wonder why. Weaponized the IRS, drew red lines in the sand in Syria, Russia, and elsewhere, and none of them ever panned out. The Obama administration was a little bit of a flub, actually. Liberals remember him as some great president. Basically, you're just remembering him for the ACA. Then you go back to George W. with his nuclear strategery and giving Laura Bush a big orgasm. His main contribution really was actually outreach to Africa. Most people don't know this. Bush's big success was outreach to West African countries to try to cock-block the Chinese more than anything else. Other than that, you've got the Iraq War, you've got the Patriot Act, you've got things like that. And then you go back a little further, you get to Clinton. Now, Clinton didn't do a horrifically bad job, but basically he was just a caretaker, and people don't realize this. Other than the schmoozing and a little bit of welfare sprinkles, basically Bill Clinton was just a continuation of Reaganism. And then, of course, you have Herbert Walker, single term, failed Iraq War, just like his son, puked on the Japanese prime minister, and then you have Ronald Reagan. I would say of the modern presidents, it basically begins with Ronald Reagan. First term, very good, similar to Donald Trump. Second term, wasn't so good. But keep in mind, other than Reagan and Clinton being relatively good, Joe Biden is competing with some real winners when it comes to worst modern presidency. Again, you've got the two Bushes and then you've got Barack Obama, basically. I suppose you could extend it to Carter. That's kind of sort of modern, although Carter doesn't look like a modern model at this point. He can barely even open his eyes. Even Jimmy Carter, I would say, overall better than Joe Biden, because at least there were redeeming qualities. The thing is, with Joe Biden, the uniqueness of his presidency is that there is no real redeeming quality to it. A couple of the ideas that he had that were good, like burying power lines to try to weatherize them, and beautify the landscape, for aesthetic reasons and stuff. A couple of his ideas that actually were decent, they never really went through now, did they? So I can't really think of anything that he accomplished during his presidency that I would be able to applaud. Like, for instance, the border. The border is Swiss cheese right now. Foreign policy. Foreign policy is basically bark at your enemies, they ignore you, and then you do nothing about it, which is the opposite of what you want to do, by the way, if you're a major country. Domestic policies related to crime. The crime rate decreases slightly. You take credit for it, but you didn't do anything to cause that decrease in the crime rate. Over and over and over, what we've seen with the Biden administration is unmitigated failure. If I had to give him credit for one thing, and this is tenuous, we're not even sure that this is actually real, it would be cock-blocking Kamala Harris. You see, that when she loses and the press is trying to yell questions at him about the loss of that candidacy, when he turns back and he does the sly smile, I still do have some belief that it's possible that he helped to orchestrate that. If that's the only contribution he gave to our country, at the very least he gave us one hell of a goddamn gift. Though I suspect that even in the absence of any shenanigans, Harris would have lost anyway. If he did help to orchestrate it behind the scenes by saying, there was that Civil War sort of headline that came from Pennsylvania. and they were saying that Kamala Harris's staff and the local and municipal offices, they weren't coordinating together. The local and municipal offices wouldn't talk to her. Could it be that Joe Biden made a phone call before then? It's entirely possible. Nonetheless, with regards to the actual poll, I tend to agree with it. I made a Substack article some time ago. At first, I was like, okay, Biden is not doing a good job, but he's not yet the worst president. I got flack, actually, from some people on the right wing for this, because I said he's not the worst president. Bush-Obama are definitely worse. Herbert Walker, the placeholder, definitely worse. He's more like maybe on Clinton's level or something like that. And then about 6 months later, I had to make a Substack article saying, yeah, he is the worst modern president, if not the worst president that we've had in U.S. history. No accomplishments, many failures, especially on foreign policy. I think the real thing that hurts Joe Biden, it's not pardoning his son, it's not minting Kamala Harris and her disastrous run. That's not really the problem. The real problem is there's no actual accomplishment there, especially related to foreign policy. I think that's what really bit Biden in the ass. I don't think it was just about the economy. Yes, that plays a role, and it wasn't just about the border. These are domestic policies. On foreign policy, Joe Biden was a complete and abject failure. He makes Obama look like a senior statesman. I would have trusted Obama over Joe Biden to do negotiating, for example, over Ukraine. I would note that in both administrations you have the Russians attacking Ukrainian soil, first in Crimea, now in Donbass, etc. You did not have that for 4 years in between. I wonder why. Could it be that possibly canonical story about Donald Trump saying he would bomb Moscow into a fiery pit of ruins if anything was done in Ukraine? That might have had something to do with it because he was probably serious. At least Putin believed him to be so. I agree, generally speaking, with this appraisal. There have been multiple failed presidencies in recent years. George W. Bush, for example, as a millennial, I'm never going to forgive him. I'm not going to forgive him for the fucking Patriot Act, the shitty response invading Iraq for no reason, the shitty war in Afghanistan that finally Trump managed to get us out of. Biden tried to take credit and ruined the entire thing, ironically enough. I can never give Bush credit for pretty much anything other than West African outreach. On that, he gets an A+. Everything else is basically bullshit. Obama, with the bailouts. The far left fucking hates him for a reason. Herbert Walker, puking on the Prime Minister of Japan, basically being a goddamn fucknut the entirety of his presidency. We've seen a lot of shitty presidents over the last 30, 40 years. But Joe Biden, I think, takes the cake. The only glory, the only success that he ever had was preventing an even worse presidency by, at least it appears, cock-blocking Kamala Harris. And if he comes out and he says, yeah, I basically stabbed her in the back, at the very least, okay, you're no longer the worst modern president, because that gift alone would be worth its weight in solid fucking gold. Other than that, yeah, Biden, what did he accomplish? Can you name one? I saw all sorts of infographics about his accomplishments from liberals. I noticed they're not posting them anymore. I think there's a reason for that. That's about all. Peace out.